Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again with another video, and this is a topical area that's actually going to be very beneficial for a lot of players, because we're going to be taking a look at and inspecting basically the entire modern limited roster just to ensure that we cover one area. Who's the best without their signature? And I mean this in like the most free-to-play sense possible. Who are the characters in this game where you can reliably skip their signature and still get results that are either going to easily clear floor 1 of the TOA, or potentially, for some individuals, depending on their build, even clear floors 3 and 4, the hardest content in the game. And so without further ado, we're actually going to be going in sort of like release order over here and just talking about, right, the units where you can comfortably just say, maybe I'm good. Maybe I'll just use a previous 5 stars weapon. Maybe I'll just use a general crit stat stick, because the kit itself is actually so strong and so sustained. So without further ado, let's get it started over here with Yangyang, and of course, give our take. You can skip the signature on this character. I am comfortably saying this with pretty much full faith in her damage output in her best teams, as well as who's going to be coming out in the future. Yangyang is a unit where her signature feels good. It feels great. You'll do a lot more damage with it, but the reality over here is very, very, very simple when it comes to this weapon, Azure Oath. This thing gives Yangyang a lot of stats that she already has. Havoc Bane, inflicting it, the wielder gains 36% heavy attack amp. Yangyang, by having Chisa, or the future Havoc Bane applier on her team, gains like 36% amp from one of her passives. So the end result is that this gives a lot of stats that kind of like add on to her stuff, right? She loses like 300k a rotation in personal damage by just using EOG instead. The standard weapon that has that amazing 587 attack, 24.3% crit rate, and of course, Yangyang uses multiple skills in her rotation, so she even stacks up the passive effect. And when you're able to get this thing up to R5 on your own, if you really do want, mine's only like R3, well, the bonus on the attack just goes up higher and higher as you're doing that. And so the end result is Yangyang, especially if you plan on pulling Soy in the future, one of her best in slot supports. Well, guys, she's going to be really, really, really good even without her sig. And when the great news is that her signature has, well, let's just look over here, right? The same stats as EOG on the base attack side. You just try EOG on these units first. And then if you don't like their performance or you need more, just go pull their weapon. But you don't need to change your build. You don't need to roll different echoes. You can just build your Yangyang like she's on Sig, and then switch to it if you actually need it. I need the drip, though, and that's the main reason why you're pulling it. You're pulling it for the look. You're pulling it because it looks cool. You're not pulling it because it feels like you need it to clear. Just a bit of a sneak peek, just a bit of a sneak preview for what's coming up later. Now, let's go ahead. Let's talk about Lucilla. Lucilla is one of the most signature unnecessary characters in the game. And the reason for this is extremely simple. You really want her sig because it does one of the new things that these sub DPS weapons do. And that is buff the entire team. Because that's what Freeze Frame does. It gives 24% attack to everybody. But it just has like pretty typical base stats and stuff like that. And the reality over here is very simple. You can just pretend that you don't have this attack buff on your team because it's only like 2 substats, right? Maybe 3. And you realistically can just put this on as like a stat stick, run a crit rate forecast. Or you could just run this if you have it. Or just run this for crit stats. Or not that. Not this because this is dog shit. Run this for crit stats. Run this for crit stats. Run that or even run this for crit stats. And all you're missing is 24% attack to your team. And guys, is 24% attack going to affect your Lucilla Hiyuki team? I'm just wondering. Is 24% attack from Lucilla's signature, is that going to affect the team that you run with this unit? No. No. Soy also is going to give 50% attack with her kit if you can consume negative statuses, which Hiyuki does. So like Soy even makes Lucilla's signature more redundant. And if I had to choice, should I put my Lucilla on Cosmic Nipples and then pull Soy or get Lucilla's weapon? I would tell you to go with the nipples. Okay? That's just going to give you way better return on investment. And that's what you should go for. Lucy. I'm gonna be honest. Lucy's signature is kind of unnecessarily strong. And I think that they actually put some of her kit behind her sig, but it doesn't really matter because she's a collab character. Rebecca, on the other hand, you actually pulling her weapon is just trolling. Her weapon is literally a collector's version. Like, it's a collector's item because, like, you could really just use EOG on her and there's almost no difference in the team. So, yeah. She's kind of weapon reliant because half her kit's like behind it. Unfortunate. She's the most weapon unreliant free character I've ever seen. Where it's like, it's unbelievable how good this unit is on Static Mist. All right. Now we got Dena. Same exact situation as Lucilla. You can just skip this unit signature and go either the Cosmic Nipples route or the crit stat stick route. Do you see now how I basically just said all 4 of these units don't need their sig, and the only one that does is the collab unit that you can't even pull anymore? Guys, that's the track record so far. All 4 of these units don't actually need their sig, and the only one is the collab unit. Because you all know this, she don't need her sig either. She don't need her sig either. If you're going to be running a Soy, Lucilla, Hiyuki team, and Hiyuki's on EOG, you will butt fuck all the content in the game. I will put money on it. If your Hiyuki's on EOG and then you got Soy, Lucilla, you will kill everything. Don't worry about that. You will kill everything. Because she's got so many built-in damage bonuses, right? She's got a lot of built-in crit damage and all that stuff. And when you look at what Lucilla's signature actually does, ladies and gentlemen, or sorry, Hiyuki's signature actually does, well, you'd be like, wait, huh? Little bit of glacial damage amplification, 28%. Glacial chafe damage amp of 20. But then Chisa's already on the team, or Soy's already on the team, and we got amp over there, and Lucilla's got amp 2 of 60%. So it's like, Lucilla amps glacial damage by 60%. This weapon amps it by 20. Bro, Lucilla does 3 times the amp that this weapon does on the glacial chafe damage, which is just better. And then 28% damage amp is kind of bad. Like, not really that great. 28%. Attack increase to 12. Hiyuki's signature is not really that crazy. I feel like most of Hiyuki's kit, or most of Hiyuki's, like, damage comes from her kit. Her weapon, genuinely, I don't even think is, like, that strong of a weapon. Because, just compare it to Yangyang's. Bro, Yangyang's gives 8% more amp and 2% more damage ignore. And then she trades it off with, like, 20% amp on, like, the negative status damage. Truly, it's good. Of course it's good, but EOG still gets the job done. Because like I said before, these characters, Yangyang, the Hiyukis, more of the power, guys, is in their kit as opposed to their weapon, which is really good on the free-to-play side. Now, Sigria and Luke Herson. I'm not going to do these two together for one reason. They both don't need their signature because there's another standard weapon that you could just use Pulsation Bracer on both of them. I'm not joking. You can use Pulsation Bracer on Luke because Luke applies Tune Straight Interfered, and he's also a basic attack damage dealer, and he's amazing with this thing. He's great. And you can also use this weapon on Sigria because it's a crit rate stat stick, and Sigria does a lot of damage even with this thing. Yes, Sigria with like a Chuyan Shorekeeper can also clear all the content in the game just on Pulsation Bracer. And while, yes, you will be very happy, right, to get Sigria's weapon because this thing gives 32% Echo Skill damage amp and 10% Aero Defense Ignore. Well, guys, doesn't this look like almost the exact same fucking thing as Yangyang Sig? Which she doesn't need because of EOG. It's like almost the exact same. And so, if you have a weapon that's almost the exact same as EOG in the form of, well, Pulsation Bracer, because this gives an attack 12% buff, and EOG gives like 6% every time you use a skill, this thing is basically the same amount of attack as an EOG, it just misses the ER substat. And that's what having an attack stat bonus over here at 12% means for these weapons. They essentially have the same floor performance as EOG, but they don't have, well, any ER. And that's going to be a bit of a downside for Sigria, but it's not enough for her to not be able to clear. And so, guys, effectively, out of all these units, we still haven't gotten to one that needs their sig. You're really only pulling these sigs to do a little bit of extra damage, and of course, the aesthetics. It's the same story for either. This unit has so many, like, fucking damage buffs and shit, like, built into her kit. 200% damage amp over here, right? Bro, she gets, like, liberation damage amp, crit damage increased by 20%, all these things. Imith's teammates are way more important than her weapon. Because, like I said before, all of the buffs are in her kit. All the damage is in her kit. And Imith's weapon itself is not really that crazy. Really similar to Hiyuki's, if we're going to be honest. Because what this bad boy over here does, ignore 32% of defense, 10% of fusion res, and then gain a 12% all attribute damage bonus. This thing has, like, not a lot of, like, raw damage buffs in it. It's a lot of defense ignore and stuff like that, and fusion resistance ignore. And it turns out when you just use EOG, and this thing has the same stats as EOG, right? Well, this is the reality, ladies and gentlemen. You could just use this instead and pull Imith's teammates. And then Imith's teammates can be used elsewhere. Because who are Imith's teammates? Mornier, Lene, Dena. They work with Luke Herson. They work with other units. Hiyuki, stuff like that. You get so much more out of pulling these characters instead of these weapons because you don't need the weapons to actually clear. And I've already seen a comment over here about End State Matrix. You're allowed to pull multiple copies of EOG and level them up. And so if you're refusing to pull multiple copies of EOG and you're refusing to pull signatures, you're just choosing not to play the game mode and you're complaining about it. So, like, which one are you going to do? Are you going to sit here and complain about having to pull multiple EOGs, knowing they're amazing free-to-play options, and just not do it and then say you can't clear? You're just out here knowing you can do something and choosing not to do it and then bitching and moaning about it. Because you can clear with all these teams in End State with EOG. You can just pull multiple copies of EOG because you get a metric fuck ton of standard pulls in this game. You just don't want to pull EOG multiple times. But you also don't want to spend on signatures. So you just don't want to do these things, even though it's reasonable to do them. Because you're given all the resources to, you just don't want to spend them. So you're just, like, greedy and stupid. Because that's what it is. If you're not going to pull weapons, and you're not going to pull multiple copies of standard weapons when you get so many pulls, you're actually just being greedy and stupid if you're going to complain about not being able to clear. Or that you don't have enough T's for End State. Because you can get them, you just don't want to. And you're saying you can't, and it's the dev's fault. Because believe me when I say this, bro, bro, I'm pretty sure if you've been playing 3.x, you have enough for, like, 3 or 4 standard weapons by now. And that's enough EOGs for all of these teams that I just fucking showed you. Next up, we got Mornier. What do you think I'm going to say here? Just use an R5 Discord, bro. Her signature is one of the worst pulls in the game. Just use an R5 Discord. It'll have a faster rotation as well. And you might actually deal more damage on an R5 Discord than her signature. Her signature's sort of pay to lose. Because one of the big dynamics about these support characters, and it'll probably be relevant for Soy Soy too, it will be because Soy Soy has Concerto on her weapon as well. It's this. Well, Starfield... Oh, I really realized it was at the top. This thing only gives 8 points of Concerto when you use your resident skill. This thing gives at max level 16. So essentially, you gain double the amount of Concerto from an R5 4-star weapon than the signature. Where to get the same amount of Concerto, this also needs to be R5. Let me know which one's more affordable. An R5 4-star weapon, Discord, released in 1.0, or this character Sig getting 5 copies of it. You let me know. So yeah, skip this shit, brother. Skip that shit. And now, we go back all the way to 3.0. Lene. You don't need her Sig. Bro, she's like the static mist user. If you thought Rebecca was the static mist user, she's also a static mist user as well. Because essentially, she's been known as the best free-to-play unit ever because her signature just looks like static mist. The only thing it gives differently is that it gives 24% all damage boost to the entire team, while her static mist, on the other hand, just gives attack to one unit. But guess who Lene is always with? Mornier. So, like, does it matter that Mornier is getting 24% damage? No. This is basically buffing only one character on your team because the other unit is Mornier. And Mornier does not give a fuck about damage buffs because she does no fucking damage. So your real difference is 24% damage or the attack boost from Static Mist. And when this thing goes up to 20% at R5, and then at, like, mine's R3, and it gives 15%, guys, I'm competing with 15% attack versus 24% damage on one character. The difference in damage for an attack scaler is about, like, 0.25%. Like the difference, guys, is, like, so minuscule that pulling this weapon is griefing. This should be the least pulled weapon in the game because it's literally griefing because the damage difference is so low from Static Mist in all of Lene's teams. It's actually a trap. And that's why I've told everyone skip it. Because there's another reason for why this is a trap. It's 20 at R5. I said mine is R3 and it's 15%. I literally just said that about 2 minutes ago. And so now I'm going to open up my menu, show that mine is R3 and it's the 15%, and then we're going to ban you because you wanted to be a little smartass. Here's my R3 static mist that shows a 15% attack boost. Retard. Yes, I know it's 20% at R5. That's why I said R3, mine's 15%. And so compared to the 24 on Linnea's weapon. Guys, imagine backseating my account's weapons. Imagine you're backseating the weapons on my account. And the refinement levels of weapons on my account. Bro, what are you doing? So now, the final point about why you should never pull Linnea's signature. Static Mist also gives ER. And ER is one of Linnea's most important stats because she needs about 130 for her rotation to work. And when this thing at R5 gives Linnea basically all the ER she would need, guys, Linnea on an R5 static mist is like objectively a better unit than like Linnea with R1 of her weapon. Because the amount of investment, resources, blah, 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 assuming you have this, and then the damage difference between the teams is so minuscule that like I would prefer to have an R5 Linnea or even an R3 one straight up 9 times out of 10. And the only circumstance where I would want Linnea's weapon is if for some godforsaken reason she was like supporting a Yangyang or something, right? Something that doesn't scale off attack. An HP scaler or a defense scaler. That's the only situation I would want this shit then. But I would never even probably be using Linnea in the first place because what does Linnea buff on her Sonata set? Oh, right. She buffs attack with that Sonata set. So it's like, I don't even think that situation where I would want her weapon would ever even happen because this gives an attack boost anyways. And so, ladies and gentlemen, after reviewing every single modern unit, basically from 3.0 onward, we've essentially established that none of them actually need their signature other than the collab unit Lucy. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that actually fucking wild? That since Linnea, none of these characters have actually needed their sig to clear anything. And that isn't talked about enough. That isn't known about enough. Truly, this is the most free-to-play friendly era of Wuthering Waves, primarily just from this perspective, guys. None of any of the units released in 3.0 have needed their signature. Isn't that kind of crazy? And I think the most wild part about this is, guys, we still have standard weapons that don't have users. I'm under the assumption, right? I am under the assumption that in the future, there's going to be a user of the Bosod Astrid Lobby. God help them. There's going to be a user of Laser Shearer. God help them. I think this is Ching Zhao. I think she's an ER scaler, bro. I'm fucking scared. Bro, I am now thinking Ching Zhao is like a hybrid ER scaling, resonance skill damage, fucked up character. And if that's the case, this might actually be good on her because she has some weird fucking shit in her kit, bro. Bro, I don't know what it is with arrow sword users. They'd just be out here molesting their motion values with the most fucked up shit imaginable, bro. Like, bro, they made Cardathy an HP scaler, and now we're seeing this shit. And we know Ching Zhao is tuned straight. So, like, bro, what are they doing? Bro, they got some diabolical shit planned, you already know. But if that's the case, imagine Ching Zhao is really good without her sig, and so nobody cares that she's an ER scaler. This is the thing. If this thing actually works on Ching Zhao really well, and then she does, like, she's like Luke Herson level performance, but she just happens to scale off ER, would you care? Because you have a standard weapon that basically works as well on her as, like, the standard weapon on Luke? Probably not, right? You'd think that's great, amazing, actually. You'd love it. You'd be like, yes, please, scale with ER. I'll just pull this, and now I don't need her sig. Or I can just get her sig and shit, too. So that's the thing, right? That's the thing. So, honestly, the future's bright for this game. Because we got another tuned straight, I guess, Liberation Broadblade character. Bro, is this Geshu Lin? Bro, is Linnea's sub DPS going to be Geshu Lin? Because we still need that Broadblade tuned strain Resonance Liberation DPS. Is this Geshu? Who knows? It might be now. There's got to be somebody that uses that shit. So we've basically gone through the most free-to-play friendly, non-weapon required stretch in the game's history, and we're only using 2 of the new standard weapons. And most of the units are actually just using the old standard weapons. Guys, that's where this value is coming from. The old weapons, the static mists, the Emerald of Genesis, all of those. And we still have 3 out of 5 that have yet to see the field. There's still more to come. Now, we got to get into some honorable mentions over here because we're kind of getting back into like some older units, but I did want to point out those that are still great, amazing, but they're maybe a bit older. Shu Yan is still great on EOG. And again, the same argument as having ER. It makes his rotation a lot smoother. And of course, his build a lot easier if you have EOG. But you still want his Sig because it gives nice team buffs. But do you need it? No, not in his teams. Galbrena. Actually, one of the most signature unreliant characters in the game because phasic homogenizer is so broken. And Carlotta actually falls into the same bucket as well. If you R5 phasic homogenizer, the new standard pistol from 3.0 that gives crit damage and then, of course, damage boost when you tomb break, at R5, it's like comparable to these characters' SIGs. So you basically can just grind up a standard weapon and have it be comparable to an entire, well, signature SIG on both these units. So from that sense, you never need their signatures. You could just pull 5 copies of this monstrosity over here. This thing is actually like, bro, this thing is... How did they release this thing? Like that, bro, how did they release this thing, right? You can see why at R5 this thing might be comparable to a SIG. 24% attack, 30% all attribute damage bonus on a tomb break, right? You can see what's going on over here, right? So you can just do that. And based off the way that thing is written, isn't that going to work on every pistol user in the future? Because, guys, I didn't mention this, but, like, you don't need to interact with the tune system to activate this. Everybody has a tune break. This don't say tune strain. This don't say tune rupture. This just says tune break. And then it gives all attribute damage. Not basic, not heavy, not liberal. All. I don't get it. So, like, any future pistol DPS can always use this. And yes, Lucy can use this too. But like I mentioned, have you ever seen a signature that gives this much? Let's read what Lucy's signature gives. 40% damage bonus, 30% heavy attack amp, and 10% defense ignore. So, like, doesn't that just seem way stronger than every other SIG? 40% damage, plus 30% amp, plus 10% defense ignore. For example, Yangyang SIG is... like, her SIG is like just the amp and the ignore. Yes, the amp is 6% higher than 30, and the ignore is 2% higher than 10, but Lucy's got 40% spectro damage on it too. And this is essentially the approach that was taken. Lucy essentially is like the older design, where the weapons were stronger and the kits were weaker. The newer designs in this game, the kits are stronger, but the weapons are weaker. And that is the only explanation you can make comparing Azure Oath, a newer weapon than Spectral Trigger. And this thing is objectively far stronger. But Lucy's kit is weaker than Yangyang's. So it balances out when you have them both. But naturally, the different approach Kuro is taking is way more friendly to players because nobody needs their fucking SIG in Lahai Roy and Mangzhou. And that's just how the cookie's crumbling right now. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, just wanted to do a bit of an update over here because people have been asking questions and they have been asking me all the time, can you use EOG on Yangyang, brother? Can you test it out on the standard weapon? Do it yourself, motherfucker. Stop asking me. It clears. Like, bro, I'm still getting asked to use the standard weapon on Imith. Bro, she got released almost fucking half a year ago, bro. I'm not doing that shit anymore. You should know by now, and I'm telling you now. So stop fucking asking me if you can clear with that shit. You can. Maybe we'll make a video on it just to prove it. Anyways, that's gonna be it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Just wanted to give the update over here because you might have gotten bored of some of the responses, but maybe not the explanations. 3.0 in Lahai Roy, it's one of the most player-friendly times in the game's history. And that's because of the shift that they take in when it comes to balancing units. Are the units stronger than before? Yes, they are. They're stronger, but less signature reliant. And that essentially means any person that's coming to this game is able to get up and running easier than it was back in the day. And is that something that the community can rally around? I think so. Even though it's naturally instituting power creep, it's literally instituting power creep in a way that's somehow more player... Do you get what I'm saying? Because, like, these other games, right? These Honkai Star Rails, these Endless Zone Zeros, they power creep the kits and the weapons too at the same time. So it's like a double whammy. You want both, and it's like double the predatoriness when it comes to the power creep and the HP inflation. These guys, on the other hand, are detaching the dependence on the weapon and like making these characters stronger 100%, but then they could just use the standard weapon and still clear. And as long as we don't get to the phase where the signatures on these units feels required to clear, then we're good. Because this is like a general raise in the power level, but keeping the weapons stagnant or keeping them going down And so now people are just less weapon reliant. And you can build teams for literally cheaper nowadays than before. It is what it is. But of course, I'd be happy to hear your guys' thoughts on this balance philosophy. Peace out.